Well, after the Rockies hire a new GM, what's the first order of business? Today, we rank the biggest decisions facing the Rockies' new front office. We talk about that and more coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, friends? Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies podcast, our first official off-season podcast. I know there's still playoff baseball happening, now World Series baseball happening, which we'll talk about as the show goes on, but it's our first off-season podcast in the sense that it's our first Tuesday show. If you guys watched last week, we gave you an update. Our schedule is changing a little bit. We're doing one show per week now, every Tuesday at noon, at least for the time being. That schedule might change depending on other shows and stuff like that. But for now, every Tuesday at noon. Glad you guys could be with us. And we got a lot to talk about on our show today. We've got some Rockies stuff, a little bit of news, but also mostly just still conversational pieces as we await the big decision, which is who do the Rockies hire as their big GM or president of baseball operations? We will, of course, be talking about the postseason, the devastating loss that my Seattle Mariners experienced last night, and preview this upcoming World Series. I'm still recovering from the loss last night for the Mariners. I drank a lot of coffee this morning, had to get some good fresh air in my lungs to bounce back because that was a tough one. And now we know what the World Series is going to look like, and got a couple days to breathe before the World Series starts.
Yeah, we got 2 more days after today, a little reset for both the teams, get all those pitchers rested up, and be full go. Because the Dodgers have been sitting around for a little bit, a little sweep of the lowly Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, those terrible Brewers.
And now the Mariners are out. Both of the small market teams are out. It's yes, Toronto. I don't want to hear this small market nonsense about Toronto.
Dude, Toronto's the New York of Canada, man.
The
that's
fifth
a huge
highest
market.
payroll in the MLB. They have immense talent throughout the lineup, and I know we've kind of referenced this, but as they're still playing, it makes sense. They put belt to ass to the Rockies, and we saw it firsthand on a 3-game series at Coors Field. It was, I guess, we'll probably rank these at some point, but the most embarrassing series of the year, maybe. I know we didn't score for an entire series in San Diego, so that could be worse. But in terms of just getting a complete ass whooping, and we see the Dodgers a ton. So, we got some wins, beat Shohei, got some exciting moments from Dodger games, but there was nothing exciting as a Rockies fan about that Blue Jay series. And it's at least fulfilling to see them in the World Series and after knowing what they did to us. I mean, a lot of teams did that to us, but this is at least something.
If you're going to put up, 46 runs in 3 games against the Rockies, at least there's a good reason for that. There are a couple days in between now and the first official World Series game, which I believe starts on Friday. And I was saying this on Twitter because we already started to see the Angels went out and made an announcement that they are hiring Kurt Suzuki as their new manager. And it's interesting because a lot of times teams that are going through a interview process or a hiring process, whether it be for a manager, for a front office spot, or even just changes within the organization, a lot of times they don't want to compete with games that are happening. You don't really want to make one of those big announcements when there's a big playoff game or a World Series game happening on the same day. So teams will wait until there's a lull in the games before they make announcements, which is why I think we saw the Angels make their managerial announcement right off the bat here this morning. I would assume we might see maybe a Giants managerial announcement. They might be hiring Tony Vitelli, I believe is how you say his name, or the Tennessee manager. But I'm curious because I know the Rockies, it was reported that they are finalizing their last round of interviews this week. If, let's just say they've had interviews yesterday, maybe today, how soon do you think we could see an announcement from them. Do you think there's a chance in which they make an announcement this week, or do you think they still wait until after the World Series?
Well, the Rockies, as you were mentioning, other teams and other organizations would wait until there's a lull. I don't know if the Rockies, A, care, B, or B, like, it feels like they would want to make a move during Game 7 of the World Series. That's kind of how they've operated in the past. If they don't, not that this is actually good news for once, which is fun. Like this, even though this could be a complete disaster and could continue us down the path that we've been on for the past 3 years, this is exciting news in Rockies country. So I would hope that they pick a time where there's not, like, it's the talk of the John Hymans and those guys, like the baseball guys. Like, I think they will. And that could, do you think it could be before Friday? Do you think Thursday we're emergency potting it up?
We could. It could. I don't think so. The Rockies tend to move a little bit slower. And I think this is a situation in which it's okay to move a little bit slower. I get people always want to rush because you've got, free agency starting the minute the World Series is done. And the World Series could technically be done sometime early next week.
Wednesday is game 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, on paper, the World Series could be done mid next week. But I think in this kind of situation, the Rockies know that they have to take care of this with somewhat urgency. But I don't see them needing to rush it before the World Series is done. Even if they have a decision, let's say Walker and Dick and all of them have already an idea of who they want to hire, which, to be honest, they probably do. Even if they have an idea of that, they probably don't need to announce it anytime soon. I think they wait. I don't think they want it to get overshadowed by the World Series. The Rockies, if there's anything you can say the Rockies do well, it's making something out of nothing, really. I mean, that's all the Rockies have been able to do. I mean, you see the amount of promotions that they do over the years with time and time again, bad teams. So I think they'll wait till the opportune moment. I think they'll give it some time. But they did make a move today. They did officially announce, albeit not the big news, but some news nonetheless. The Rockies hired their new Latin America scouting director, or just a director. He's former scout Alvin Duran. He was the Dominican Republic coordinator for the Padres, scouted players like Emmanuel Clase, who will likely never play a Major League Baseball again, but that's a different story. Ethan Salas and Leo DeVries. I don't really know much about the scouting world for the Rockies. I don't really know much about the scouting world in general. Is it interesting, though, that we're starting to see some, moves being made from an organizational standpoint before we have a GM in place?
Yes, because it gives me a little pause on, there's so many people that go into an organization. Like, it's unbelievable. Totally. And like, from scouting to analytics to the actual GM of the team to the managers of all 6 or 5 or whatever minor league teams and all their rosters and their everything that goes into it is kind of insane the more you dive into it. But the thing that this does give me a little bit of pause on is they're clearly, obviously they're going to make the decision. Dick and Walker and that whole, trust or whatever you call it is going to make the decision on who the president of baseball operations is. But this concerns me that they're making lower level decisions as well without the potential input of said new guy. Because let's theoretically, we don't know what these interviews are going to look like. We would pay a sick amount of money to be a fly on the wall in any of these Rockies GM / president of baseball operations interviews. We won't be able to know, but the more hires you have low level before that guy is hired, the more it just signals to me that the Monforts still have their hands way too much in deciding who's going to control the fate of the baseball team on the field for the next X amount of years. It could.
And I totally get where you're coming from. I think this is a byproduct of some of the PTSD that we as Rockies fans have anytime theoretically the Monforts are making decisions within the organization. It's like, we want to kind of step back a little bit. And so I think that's the initial reaction to this. But I also think it's just one scout, I mean, and on paper, I don't know much about this guy beyond just his quick little introduction that I saw on Twitter. Sounds like he might be a good fit. I mean, obviously the Padres have a very deep tie to the Latin American players and development through that. And so I don't have an issue with it from just an on-paper degree. But yeah, any hire that happens between now and when we get that announcement is going to be a little bit confusing to us, just because I think those types of decisions usually are made by the person who's in charge. So,
well, one quick thing on this that is actually, if you spin it in a positive light, I don't know, because this hire was just announced, an hour ago, so I didn't do too much research into it. But the interesting thing is the Rockies have not been very good at getting the Latin American players to either drafting them or getting the right players to come up through the system. Because when I was covering the team this season and Yanquiel Fernandez made his debut when I was covering the team, I think it was, you have to correct me if I'm wrong on what area he's specifically from, but he was the first player to ever make his debut being drafted by the Rockies.
From Cuba.
Cuba, that's what it was, Cuba, to make his debut for the Rockies after being drafted by them. And you look at the talent in baseball nowadays, that just can't happen. So I'm hoping that whether they already had a director and he was fired, or they've added this position as a specific Latin American scouting director to find that hotbed of players, it would be massive and already a positive direction the Rockies are moving in, because yes, they're weak in very many areas. We know that 43 and 119 will tell you all you really need to know about the major league product, but their lack of scouting and their lack of able to draft and develop kids from guys from Latin America has been a huge miss. It's just what are they doing? Where are these guys coming from? So
it's getting better. Because you got Tovar, you've got some guys in the bullpen, Shivi. It's gotten better, but I agree. It's still an area, like many, that the Rockies desperately need to improve on. I will give you the exact title because it's a little different than what I just said. The Rockies have hired scout Alvin Duran as their new Latin America supervisor. He is the assistant to the director. So I believe they already have a director in place who's managing the scouting for Latin American regions. And it sounds like this new guy is an assistant, which also would lead me to understand more about why he was hired before this new president of baseball operations, because it sounds like if they already have a director in place, the director probably hired this guy. So can't be a bad thing though. The Rockies are moving forward, and Scott makes a great point. It really doesn't matter who it is. It's how the leader of baseball operations directs him, or in this case, them. If it's the director or it's the supervisors or whatever, it's just the general scouts. There's going to be a lot of different people that this new president of baseball operations is going to be leading, and that's going to be how this all comes to fruition. So there's a lot of things on the plate of this new president of baseball operations, this new GM. So I wanted to kind of ask the question, and maybe even we'll phrase it this way. I want to rank the Rockies' most important offseason decisions facing the new front office, specifically the new president of baseball operations, or GM, however you want to call it. For the sake of this conversation, can we just call it the new GM? Because I keep saying both, and I'm like, I need to stick with one until we learn otherwise. The new general manager.
Yeah, general manager is about as simple as easy as it gets. You manage the general things, aka the roster.
We're getting too specific here, but it's the general manager.
But see, I'm also saying, I keep saying president of baseball operations to try to manifest that they hire that.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing. I'm manifesting.
All right, I'll say general manager. You say president of baseball operations. We'll find a middle. Obviously, the biggest decision facing the Rockies during this offseason is who is going to be the new general manager, who's going to be leading the charge for this organization. But once that person is in place, which will likely happen within the next week to 2 weeks, there is a whole hell of a lot of digging yourself out of hundreds of different holes to get this organization back to a place where you can be competent into the specifics. I think whoever gets hired needs to get this organization back to being competent again. Once you can get to that, then you can build off of that. But that has to be the first step of hey, all of these things that we've done that everyone else in Major League Baseball looks at the Rockies and laughs at and says, what the hell are those Rockies doing? That's the type of stuff that needs to be flipped on its head.
Yeah, it changes the whole complexity of your organization moving forward. And whether you become this new president of baseball operations becomes a dive into the draft class and really try to be a draft and develop team like the Rockies have said they are, or it's a more free agent trade, focused director. Now I'm fucking the name up. President of baseball operations. Like you kind of at least see what direction they're going in, and then you can feel like you're following that. And you don't know what it's going to be. Obviously, we don't even know who the guy is yet. But
which the Rockies have done a really good job of keeping this close to the chest too. Usually, you see more than just a couple names floating around in the rumor mill.
Do you think it's like not that Thomas, Thomas Harding, those guys, you covering the team, being there all the like. Do you think anybody really gives a shit at this point? Like, I think it's a little bit more of that. Of like,
it's still a scoop.
Like John Hyman's going to see like 10 different scoops from 10 different teams and be like, oh, the Rockies hired their GM. I'll throw that tweet out at 11:40 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon.
It's a scoop just because the Rockies get a lot of hate. They get some love. We try to give them a little bit of love on our end, but the Rockies get a lot of hate, and so it's a scoop nonetheless. When the Rockies sign a new GM, it will make ripples across Major League Baseball. I mean, the Angels just signed Kurt Suzuki to be their manager, and I'm seeing a bunch of tweets about it. And I could give a shit about the Anaheim Angels, but I'm going to pay attention to it because it's news. So it's still a scoop. But I am impressed by the Rockies keeping this pretty close to the vest, besides just a couple names floating around. But let's take our first break of the show. After the break, we rank the Rockies' most important decisions facing the new general manager. We break down some of those upcoming decisions, which ones take priority. That's all coming up next. All right, I want to give some love to our friends over at Bet365, because at Bet365, we don't do ordinary. And this has been a crazy weekend for betting on sports, whether you're betting on baseball or betting on the Broncos, maybe against the Broncos. I don't know. If you're using that Bet365 app, using code DNVR365, you might have been in for a pretty crazy weekend. Did you have some crazy hits on Sunday?
I had some crazy losses, actually. And unfortunately, the Bet365 app, what they do is incredible for football. So if you bet a team's money line and they go up 17-0, that bet cashes out no matter the final score. So what I failed to do is I was at the Broncos game, had a few Coors Lights, was feeling a little good. I saw how the game was going and I said, okay, I'm live betting the Giants because I originally wanted to live bet the Broncos. The odds weren't good enough. So I was like, why would I live bet a team plus 155 when I check down 2 touchdowns? I don't want that. So I'm just going to empty the account or go close to it on the Giants. Stupid bet, because I lost my whole account, most of it. I was sad. But to that point, if you bet on the Giants pregame on the Bet365 app and you're a Broncos fan, you would have had the best day ever, because you would have cashed your bet, the early payout offer, 17-0, cashed your Giants money line bet at plus 235 before the game, and then you got to watch the Broncos provide you with the most incredible, improbable comeback we've ever seen on a football field. So use the Bet365 app, get that early payout offer. I don't condone betting against your teams. It's just how I roll. But I wish I would have done it pregame, because I would have been the happiest man alive. I would have had money and the Broncos.
My buddy, diehard Giants fan, bet on the Giants, and he was able to cash with that early payout on the Bet365 app. He was a little bit more disappointed by the way that game ended, by the way. But crazy stuff over the weekend. Use the code DNVR365 when you sign up. See why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older. Physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Coors Light, because Coors Light is the most refreshing light beer. And I was at the tailgate, first tailgate of the season for me, by the way. Incredible tailgate that was packed before that Broncos.
Unbelievably large.
Yeah, unbelievably large tailgate. And I had a couple good Coors Lights, and I haven't had Coors Light in like a football setting in a while. It's like when you crack open your first Coors Light, when you go back to, Coors Field for the first time after a long offseason. Like, nothing hits better than that. That's kind of how I felt with this at the Broncos tailgate. Got there, it was kind of early in the morning. I was handed a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light, and the day went up from there. I mean, it was a great way to enjoy that. So lots of fun was had at the tailgate, and Coors Light is just a perfect little accent to that day. Just an incredible day of football, incredible day of good vibes. Embrace that chill mindset. Choose chill. Crack open an ice cold, refreshing Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. I'm seeing Mr. Lefty in the chat says, crazy thought, Albert Pujols for manager of the Colorado Rockies. That would be something. That would definitely move the needle. I don't know if the Rockies would want to, A, take a shot on a first-time manager, and B, go with someone as well-known as Albert Pujols. In that case, I think if they're going to go with a first-time manager, we've said this before, they probably just stick with Warren Schaefer. He's cheap. Players love him. It's a low-risk situation, especially when, and we'll talk about this in just a second, I believe finalizing your manager is one of the lower priorities when it comes to the decisions of this new GM. But that would certainly move the needle.
It would. And your point there, Lefty, is like his deep ties to Latin American baseball and the fact that the Rockies do not have them. You could look at that as a positive of like, all right, we're going to try to move more in that direction. Or that could be, I'm not saying that Albert Pujols, as one of the greatest, the machine, one of the greatest hitters of all time, can't relate to Brenton Doyle, Hunter Goodman, Jordan Beck, like all these guys. I'm not saying that, but it's just not what your organization is kind of prioritized. Mm-hmm. Whereas a Warren Schaefer, not saying he deserves the job, not saying he needs it, not saying he's going to get the job, but to me, all of those dudes love Warren Schaefer and probably would relate to him a lot more than if the team was full of the Yanquiel Fernandezes and the Amadors and guys like that and the Tovars. Like maybe it makes a little bit more sense, but I think starting with the drafting and developing of the really good Latin American players and getting them up to the major leagues, then you maybe look more in this direction. And it would be a needle mover, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just think if the Rockies were in the same position that the Marlins are in, where the Marlins are like a bad team, but like on the verge of being good, almost a good team that's barely getting out of being bad, you're kind of on that cusp. That's totally different because then you can bring in a manager that's, that can move the needle, and the players are hyped to have this big name in the clubhouse and a guy who's been there and done that, all of those kind of things. 100% Lefty. Lefty says the Rockies need a builder. Pujols is a monument. And if the Rockies were in a different stage of their organization, that move makes a lot more sense. But it's a great conversation, though. I'd love to sit down with Albert Pujols and get to have breakfast with him at winter meetings. I mean, that'd be sick from my perspective.
Oh yeah, it'd be incredible. Do you think, not to sidetrack us too much, but do you think, like, thinking about Pujols and being the manager, or just whoever the next manager is, do you think the next manager of the Rockies, obviously we don't know what they're going to be the next 5 to 10 years, but I feel like the next manager of the Rockies is like a stopgap. And I've mentioned this before, like a John Fox with the Broncos type of scenario. Like, I don't think whoever the next manager of the Rockies is, they're going to win with necessarily, but he's going to kind of clean up everything, and then he'll end up maybe being fired or retiring or something like that. And then they'll have hopefully a good roster by that point, and then they'll hire the guy that's like, hey, he's going to be our manager for the next 10 to the Jim Tracy or the Clint Hurdle or something like that. I think Warren Schaefer is the perfect fit for that. I'm not saying I want him to be a stopgap that just fizzles out one day, but I think realistically, he's cheap. He connects with your players. He's all about development. Like, he's the right fit for that. You don't need to bring in the Bruce Bochy yet. You're not there yet. You've got years before you're at that stage of your organization. So have a guy who's low risk that the players can respect and get on board with, and ride with that guy until you need to upgrade, right? That's where we're at with that. We could spend all day talking about the managerial search, and I think that's a conversation once we already have the GM in place. That's a conversation for that day. But let's look at some of the big decisions facing this Rockies' new future GM, and I want to kind of rank them based on your idea of what should be prioritized. Obviously, the number one most important thing is hiring the new GM, Chief of Strategy Officer, those top positions. But from that point on, which decisions do you think should be made first? First of all, and I'll go through this list, and then I want you to kind of organize them. First on my list, finalizing manager, signing free agents / trades, offseason trades,
Chris Bryant, and investing in internal development and infrastructure like data analytics, that kind of stuff. What do you think should be the first move in this offseason? If we get, let's just say the new GM is announced the day after the World Series ends, what's the first order of business for them?
I think the next one from this list is definitely the investing in internal development infrastructure with data analytics, getting an idea for a plan. Like like you can't just go build a house. You got to go draw out the plans, then you got to find the lumber, then you got to find the contractors. Like there's so many other things you have to do before you just start erecting a house. And I think investing in internal development and infrastructure is the most important, in my opinion. Like these other three are, I think if I were to rank them second, then I think signing free agents and trades is up there, because not necessarily that the Rockies are going to compete next year. We don't think that. We were hoping for 27 or 28, but to me, it's going to be really fun / important to see the direction that they take. Like if they go out and try to sign Pete Alonso, which I would be for, I've said that on the show before, but like if they try to go get some legit free agents, I mean, we went through the list a couple weeks ago of the pitchers and the other position players that are available. Like that kind of signals to me like, okay, we're going to get some seriously good vets in here. We feel like we have a young enough core that can grow with these vets to actually win baseball games, and you go from there. There's also the other side of the coin that we've talked about, which would be some doomsday scenario for some Rockies fans. I just want the team to be good, and I don't care who's on it when they're good. But like if the new guy comes in and let's say trades Hunter Goodman at the peak of his potential trade value, trades away Brenton Doyle, trades away Ezekiel Tovar, any of those three guys, and maybe a few others where you're like, oh, so he clearly doesn't think that they're part of a winning organization. We're going to get even younger and get 2 AA guys for Brenton Doyle and try to move on into 27, 28 from right now. So it doesn't necessarily, it's important to me because it signals the direction that they're going in. And then below that, I would have Chris Bryant. That's just a big thing that's just like, you're you're just going on a first date with this girl and you see she's got this like massive wart on her eye, which I have, not a wart, a birthmark, but you gotta deal with that. Like
I was going to go more of the X route. She's just like got this X that's still involved.
That's a good one
still
too.
Still texting her every day. You got to cut that out before you can have a good relationship.
Right. Yeah. So they got to figure out what to do with Chris Bryant. And then to
Wild
me,
example.
Just because the manager, like we just talked about, finalizing the manager, it will be semi-important, but Dave Roberts is a joke, and his team's in the World Series. So, like, I don't think like manager's important. Yes, the coach is important, but at the same time, we've fired a manager this year, and still, we said how many times on the show it's not Warren Schaefer's fault. He's just trying to do this and that. Like, the roster is way more important than hiring the manager. So I would say Chris Bryant's important because he affects the roster potentially. If you find a way out of that contract and you have that $50 million to spend somewhere else, then maybe that financially impacts the entire organization, which theoretically it could. And then the managers are just going to be the guy that's like, all right, I've got these pieces. What can I do with them? Because we think we know what most of the pieces are. There are some question marks, but overall we have an idea of what the Rockies roster is. I think just having a solid stopgap guy in there that's been a manager before, if it's not Warren Schaefer, is just the right call. And it's just like a low key, this is our manager. This is how we're going to go about things. We're going to clean this mess up.
Yeah. I think I kind of split this up into 2 categories here. If you're going based off of the order in which that I think this new GM will do things, I think finalizing a manager, although it's not as big of a priority, I do think they'll do it. They'll figure that out pretty quick. I don't think they're going to want to go deep into the offseason without having a manager finalized, especially given that all the other organizations, the Angels, the Giants, all these other teams already have their manager search underway. So I do think they're going to go kind of quickly with that. In my opinion, I think they'll probably just keep Schaefer, but we'll see.
Well, do you think with that, to piggyback off that, do you think, and would you be happy with if let's say they hire, what was the guy's name from the Blue Jays that or not the Blue Jays, who did they interview for the job that you were the Strong, or what was his name?
Wait, what? Are you talking about for a manager?
Not for a manager, for a director or GM, as you call it.
You talking about James Click?
James Click.
Yeah.
That Click strong. I'm a little off today, apparently. But like, do you think
Same thing.
If like they hire James Click, then James Click is going to be the one that's like, oh, I'm going to poach this guy from my former team, bring in a whole group of people? Or do you think these hirings are just going to be boom here, boom here, boom here? Like if it's a good team, if he's coming from a good team, I would kind of like to see that, some comfortability within that little middle part of the Rockies organization. When you have the owners, you have the players, but then you have that middle part that's all kind of like a cohesive unit that's worked together.
Yeah, again, it's like I've used this example before. It's like when a president, gets elected, they bring in all their own people, right? I think it's the same idea with a GM. So I think we could see something like that. But I just, even though I wouldn't put the manager spot this high on the list, I just think it's natural. A GM's going to come in and they're going to say, what's the first order of business? I got to get a manager. I got to get someone who's on the same page as me, whether they have to go through interviews, whether they bring someone in from outside the organization, or they speak to Warren Schaefer and say, yep, he's the guy. We're going to keep him. Whatever that looks like, just for their own organization, I think you have to get a manager in place in that kind of situation. But if it's me prioritizing these situations, I think, like you said, investing in internal development or just getting a new structure in place for data analytics, getting everyone on the same page, doing an audit basically of everything that the Rockies do and implementing your own plans has to be the number one thing on the top of this list. And it's not even close. Everything else, in my opinion, is white noise. You could spend the entire offseason just doing that point number one. And I'm happy. I'm totally cool. You don't sign free agents. Don't do any trades. Don't figure out Chris Bryant. Don't finalize a manager. Just do that. And I'm happy. But if we're going down the list, I think number two, in my opinion, has to be Chris Bryant. Because like you said, Chris Bryant is just, he's like the leech that's just still there, sucking you dry. And this is nothing against Chris Bryant personally, but the Rockies need to move on. And the biggest contract, albeit they can't get out of the contract, but the biggest albatross, the elephant in the room when this new GM comes in is going to be Chris Bryant. I think you have to come in and say, yes, we owe you this money. We're either going to let you retire or we're going to release you. And that has to be high on the list just to move on from that, to turn a page and get started in the new direction. Then I think it comes down to signing free agents and trades. However big or small that looks like, get your roster set up for 2026, whatever that looks like. That includes the minor league system, by the way, and we're going to talk about that soon. And then the last thing on my list is finalizing a manager. Although it won't happen in that order, I do think that is the lowest priority on this entire list. We got to pause, take our second break of the show. After the break, what should the new GM do specifically in the minor league system with the outfield? There is a surplus of decent to good outfielders sitting in the minor leagues right now for the Rockies. What does the new GM do with Charlie Condon? Let's have that conversation coming up in just a moment. Well, I want to give some love to our friends over at Game Time, because if you are heading out to watch the Nuggets start their season, when's the official opener of the NBA regular season?
The official opener of the NBA starts tonight.
The
Nuggets' first away game is Thursday, and the Nuggets' first home game here at Ball Arena is Saturday.
Love it. I love it. So basketball is back in full swing. We got college hoops right around the corner, which is crazy too. But you got to use the Game Time app if you're heading out to Ball Arena to watch some NBA, a little bit of hoops this season. The Nuggets look like the best team I've ever seen from them, at least on paper. Knock on wood that they're going to exceed expectations, but you got to be a part of that. Use the Game Time app. Game Time makes it easier to get the tickets that you want when you want for the prices that fit for your situation, because we know how expensive it is to go out and watch really any sports nowadays, but especially basketball. And Game Time, it's cheaper than ever to go and get some tickets to go watch the Nuggets, to go watch your favorite NBA team. That app, the Game Time app, makes it easy to get the tickets that you want. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR. You know it, DNVR, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. I also want to give some love to our friends over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and I love my Toyotas, not just for what they do today, or what my car does for me today. I drive a 2024 RAV4, just bought it about a month ago. I think it's my first month with this car. But it's also something that I'm looking into the future with, because not only do Toyotas last forever, but my wife and I, Marissa and I, we can foresee a future where we have some kids one day, probably within the same time span that we still have this car. And you got to have a car that can hold car seats, that can, be a family car. And Toyota has so many great choices, whether you are single living by yourself and you just need a good truck, two-door truck that can get you from point A to point B, or you're like me, you're starting a family and you need a car that can handle all of the road trips, all of the car seats, all of the trunk space. Toyota has so many different choices for you. I know you rock the Toyota with your family, with Sawyer, and I know you probably have a car seat in the back of your Toyota right now.
I do, yeah. It was full of alcohol this past weekend, but
now it's full of car seats.
Drove my son to work today. He's
I
at
love
the
it.
office.
A Toyota is a versatile vehicle. So visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you if you are in the market to go get a new car. That's Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota Eastern Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. All right, we're back here with a little minor league conversation, because I was doing some research looking at, okay, what are our two Rockies who are playing in the fall league? How are they playing? And it looks like they're playing pretty well. Charlie Condon, Jared Thomas, both had grand slams the other day. Condon had an RBI that took them, I believe, allowed them to win that game, or at least get the lead at that point. And so you see Condon's playing well, Jared Thomas is playing well, but it brings up the point of what does this new person in charge do with the minor league system? Because I think the minor league system, especially for teams that are rebuilding, gets overlooked sometimes when it comes to organization. And how do the Rockies manage a surplus of players at a specific position? How do they build up certain positions? Obviously, we've seen the Rockies starting to build up their pitching in the minor league system through some trades, the Ryan McMahon trade, and some of the other trades that happened at the deadline. But I'm looking at the roster in the minor leagues and the prospect list, and the Rockies have a handful of players to consider that are in the outfield discussion. You've got Zach Thien, who, albeit did not play well when he was at Coors Field in Colorado, but he still had a good minor league season. He hit 289 in AAA. He had a high OPS. He had a good season that was marred with some injuries, but he's still a top prospect for the Rockies. Yanquiel Fernandez, 225, 4 home runs, 52 games. I wouldn't say that's overwhelming, but he's still a top prospect within the organization. Sterling Thompson was absolutely crushing the baseball. 296 batting average with a 911 OPS. Plus, you've got Tyler Freeman, now Mickey Moniak. I mean, the Rockies have a lot of decisions at that in the outfield. What do you think this new person, and it's hard to speculate when you don't know who it's going to be, but how would you approach this offseason when it comes to the surplus in the outfield?
Well, I think the first thing you got to do is answer any questions that you have about the players that have played at the major league level. And there's two ways to answer that. You run it back with basically the same roster, ideally healthy, that we saw in September of some sort of platoon of Moniak, Beck, Doyle, Fernandez, and Tyler Freeman, whether one of those guys is DHing most of the time or whatever. But you have to figure out, to me, if any of those guys are the guys that you are willing to move forward with, because before you start reloading at the either the AAA or the AA level and trading some of these guys, I think there's still so many questions to be answered from the major league level part of the roster that you got to just let it play out. And you let them play a full, 162. And if we see a lot, like, the Rockies' struggles were not just in one area this year, right? Yeah. We talked about them twice a week, every week. We watched every game. There was pitching struggles from most of the season. There was hitting struggles for a good part of the season when the pitching was actually pretty decent early in the year. Then there was bullpen struggles. Then there was strikeout struggles. Then they stopped striking out. Then they started striking out again. So there's so many questions up in the air about whether or not the 9 guys that they put on the major league field are actually major league ready players. Other than Hunter Goodman, you can pretty much say he is. And Brenton Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar have shown enough in the past to give them the benefit of the doubt. But the rest of the guys, they just need to either trade them and say, hey, you're not part of our future and you need to be on a different roster and we're going to retool some younger guys. Or you say, all right, we're going to play you all this year and see if you are a part of our solution and not part of our problem.
Yeah, yeah. It's not something I think they need to rush yet, because I kind of agree with Lefty. You know, it's going to take some time, and I think it's more about the structure that the organization sets up than it is about individual performance yet, right? We're still rebuilding, so it's like this new person's going to come in and their job is going to be to reevaluate everything within the organization. And then after you see how that kind of goes, then you could start making some of those decisions. But I think especially with a possible lockout coming in 2027, I don't think there's a rush to reorganize these chairs yet in the outfield. I don't think it'd be a bad thing to give some more opportunities. I'd love to see Zach Veen get another shot next year, see if he's matured a little bit. I know the Rockies' former front office had zero faith in Zach Veen's maturity. I'd love to see him try again. I'd love to see get Sterling Thompson get a shot to just see. You know, I mean, 2026 isn't going anywhere. 2026 is not a year of postseason baseball for the Colorado Rockies. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. This is a year of building. And so I don't think they need to make any huge decisions when it comes to the minor leagues yet, but let us keep seeing some of these guys.
Yeah, Scott's comment nailed it on the head. And I think in order to do that, like, would you be mad if the Rockies started the 2026 season, which we know is not going to be a winning season, but we want to find some answers? Would you be mad if the Rockies starting outfield is Moniak in right, Doyle in center, Beck in left, and then Fernandez and Freeman are the guys off the bench or DHing? No, I wouldn't either. And that's the thing, is like,
it's actually probably a good outfield.
Right, exactly. And that's where it's tough, because I feel like we both have a decent amount of knowledge. We have a good amount of knowledge about the Colorado Rockies and we're watching winning baseball. We know what winning baseball looks like from other teams as of now, but we know what it looks like. And not saying those guys are absolute winners, but they're also not turds. Like, they had some good moments in the season and good overall, not even just moments, but like stretches and guys that were actually could be legit major leaguers. So I wouldn't be mad if we rolled out a lot of that team. And yes, you hope more things go right and you don't win 43 games again. You hope they're in the 55 to 60 range and at least semi-competitive in a lot more of them. And pitching will have a lot to do with that too. Because I'm like, the pitching staff, I'm cool with it being 5 new guys or 4 new guys in Kyle Freeland or 4 new guys in Tanner Gordon. Like, I'm cool with a complete rebuild of that and retool of that at the major league level. But at the major league level in the outfield, I just don't see where you change it. You just let him play another year and see what, you know, you're still building anyways. Or maybe one of the guys gets really hot and you decide that you're still 2 years out and you trade him at the deadline.
Yeah. Luke says we're still high on Moniak, right? Minus 0.6 WAR. KB had a minus 0.5 WAR. The reason we're high on Moniak, at least for now, is because he took such a leap forward this last year, where it's like, hey, and he's still young. I mean, 26, 28, something like that. Like, he could still continue to grow. And we know that he has the tools because he was a first overall draft pick years ago. We know he's got the ability. It's just no team's been able to really get that out of him yet. And the Rockies seem to be the first ones to do that. So yes, he's not perfect yet. I don't think that Moniak is a guy you're basing your franchise on, but he's been good enough. And he was he took a step forward this year that I'd at least be high enough on him to give him another shot. Right. I don't think the Rockies are going to base their franchise off the guy, but yeah, he's worth another shot in 2026. Do we see Charlie Condon in 2026? The Rockies have a big hole right now in first base. Is there a world in which we see him debut next season?
No, because yes, he debuts next season. He debuts in August, September, maybe. But I'm considering no injuries to the major league club. Mm-hmm. But I think there's still too much to see from Warming Bernabel. And my kind of hot take of this offseason is that the Rockies' new president of baseball operations is going to make a splash at first base, because it's such a glaring hole, and has been. And now that we know, we did get a question answered this year and know that Michael Toglia is unfortunately not an MLB level player. There's a massive hole there in a power position where MLB is built on home runs. We saw it last night in Game 7 of the ALCS. Get somebody there that can hit you 30 to 35 bombs. I don't care If it's Ryan O'Hearn, I want it to be Pete Alonso. Like, I think the Rockies will go
James
out and
Wood,
sign
yeah.
a first baseman that's a legit, had a proven career MLB first baseman. They're going to probably have to overpay him a little bit, but he'll be able to see his numbers, whether it's 2-year deal, maybe 3-year deal, skyrocket playing at Coors Field 81 games a year.
Yeah, I'm not against it. We got to take our last break of the show. After the break, we recap the ALCS, talk about maybe the most heartbreaking losses in Rockies franchise history, and also talk a little bit about the World Series coming up on Friday. We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Volo because it's still summer. It's beautiful weather outside, as long as you maybe go outside after 9 a.m. It's a little chilly in the mornings. But the good thing is Volo, they've got games later in the day when it's beautiful still. And if you're not familiar, Volo is the most popular provider of adult social sports leagues here in Denver and beyond, but specifically here in Denver. And Volo is a great place to get outside. You join a league, or maybe you even just join as a pickup player, and you can, on a random Saturday, just join a team and get to play some kickball, get to play basketball, cornhole, whatever sport you want to sign up for. They've got tons of different choices, tons of options. It's a great way to get outside and just have fun. And I forget sometimes how nice it is to just be competitive every once in a while. Go play a sport, right? Like, be a kid again. And Volo is the perfect place to do that. Not only is it fun to get out and play some sports again, but it's a great way to meet new people, make friends, especially with how hard it is to make new friends nowadays. It's a great place to meet new people. So you can't go wrong with Volo. You can sign up as a free agent, small group, or full team. All ability levels and backgrounds are welcome to join. Use code DNVR10 for $10 off any Volo Denver league. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Dick's Sporting Goods, because Dick's is a new partner with us here at DNVR Rockies.
Support this Dick's, not Dick Monfort.
No, yes, this is the good Dick's. Yeah, this is
the good Dick.
This is the very, very good. You knew this was going to get derailed right off the jump. Dick's Sporting Goods is a proud new sponsor of the DNVR Rockies podcast, and you guys all know about how great Dick's is because they have the best sports apparel in all of, the entire country, really. I mean, you could find a good Dick's store anywhere in the country, and Dicks.com, even if you're not going into the store, you can find all of the greatest sportswear, good running shoes. So, hey, if you're going to go, join a sports league and go play some pickup, kickball or whatever it is, well, you can go get your running shoes beforehand at Dick's Sporting Goods because they have the best apparel from the top brands. And it's just the best place to go shopping. And also they have DNVR swag. You can go find some Rams gear, some Buffs gear, Nuggets, even some Rockies gear there. So get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com because every season starts at Dick's. All right. We got that one out of the way. That was, we're holding our breath for that.
I'm not sure that one's getting sent through the agency back to their. It also is fire.
It's also sick that we're partnered with Dick's.
Yeah, and we have bad Dick at 20th and Blake, and we have good Dick everywhere around Colorado at Dick's Sporting Goods. So
I didn't realize you were making that. I didn't realize you were making that comparison. So that's incredible. Love our new sponsor. All right. I got to get a little sad here because I can't lie. Yesterday was a hard day for me, man. You guys know, the Rockies are my team, but I grew up in Seattle, and during my entire life living in Seattle, I never got to see the Mariners go to the playoffs. I never saw the Mariners go to the playoffs the entire, decade or more that I lived in Seattle. And so here I am. The Rockies had the worst season, arguably in the history of baseball. It was a tough one. It was a long, grueling season for Rockies fans. And then the Mariners get to the playoffs, and I say, all right, I'm jumping on. I'm hitching myself to this Mariners train. I'm all in on the Seattle Mariners. First postseason that I can truly experience as a fan. And the Mariners go all the way to Game 7 of the ALCS. They are, 9 outs away from a World Series. And George frickin' Springer, that damn cheater from the Astros, goes out and has to hit the game-winning home run. Rips my heart out. So not only did I have a regular season, depression of watching the Rockies.
162 straight of just ripping your heart out.
And then I got excited that, here we go. We're actually going to get to the Mariners are going to actually get to go to the World Series. I'm going to get hyped. And the Mariners ripped my heart out again. It's been a hell of a baseball year for me, man.
Yeah. I mean, so we text very frequently all the time, but when the Mariners are playing, I pick and choose my points to text you. And I was watching the game and I was like, oh my God, like I think the Mariners are going to do this. I wanted to kind of text you and hype you up and be like, let's go. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it alone. We're going to, once that final out is recorded, then I'll text him and we can celebrate and be excited about the Mariners making the World Series. And leadoff walks, man.
Leadoff walks, they come back to haunt.
We have a thing in the press box. It's great. They will come back to haunt you. Another hit from Isaiah kind of Falefa. Just like a guy in the 8-hole just seems kind of, the walk seems a little bit like it doesn't matter. And then you get a single base hit and you're like, oh God, they're about to flip the lineup card over. And Springer's been pretty hot and made some insane plays. And not only as a time as a Blue Jay, but all that time with the Astros. And you're like, oh my God, and what was that pitcher's name? Bizzardo. He absolutely meatballed that thing.
He did.
That was middle and a little in.
And by the way, Bizzardo, if he was on the Rockies, by far would be the best pitcher in the rotation. I mean, like Bizzardo's a dog. He just made one mistake. John Smoltz was saying during the game, he was criticizing Dan Wilson for not going with Munoz, the Mariners closer, who's been unhittable his entire career, basically. Give me your take on that. Do you agree that, do you agree with Schmaltz that you think in that situation with the game on the line in, what was it, the 7th inning, I think it was, that he should have gone with the closer there, or should he have waited like he did for the 8th and 9th?
I think it's always easy in hindsight to say, oh yeah, you go with your closer there, but especially with the way, because isn't Brian Wu a starter?
Yes.
Yeah. So
the best, he's the Mariners ace.
Yeah. So they bring their ace in, he gets into some trouble. And at that point, to me, like when the Rockies had shutdown closers, it was great, but when you bring them in a spot they're not used to being in, they're getting up earlier than they normally would. They're not kind of ready for that spot. And then you bring them in with 2 guys on base. Like closers are we got a lot of, we've had a lot of closers in Colorado. Fun ones, really. Agnos was fun. Vodnik
guys
was
that
fun.
throw hard.
Halverson was fun. But I got to imagine just by seeing those guys and how they act just around the baseball field, where your whole day requires 1 inning, 3 outs of the most high pressure packed baseball you could imagine, whether it's regular season or postseason. And bringing a guy in with runners on base can't be the most comfortable situation for them. Like they have to deal with runners on base, but those guys are guys they put there if they're a closer. They're usually coming in clean slate, fresh inning. They've got a good scouting report on the 3 guys that they're going to face, and they're ready to go. And so I with how many good options you had, like it's not like the Rockies were in that same spot and didn't go to Herget. Like that's a different story. You got a bunch of guys with 6 ERAs and you're going not to Jimmy Herget. It's a different story. But like they went to Wu. They had, Bizzardo, like you said, would be the best Rockies pitcher in the bullpen or in the starting lineup that they have. Like you had so many good options that I wouldn't kill him for not going there.
Yeah, you had other good options too. I mean,
let's not forget, it was 7, 8, 9 in that inning. Like it's not like it was 3, 4, 5 where you're like, okay, well, if Munoz comes in and gets these 3 guys out, then we can kind of not coast playoff baseball. Anybody can make a play, but like it was a very
changes the situation.
Yeah, 100%. It was a very easy part of the lineup of the Blue Jays lineup at that point.
Yeah, well, and Bizzardo had his last time facing Springer had gotten a ground ball. He just made a mistake. That's baseball. That's the way it goes. And Bizzardo got out of it after that. I mean, he got out of that inning without. I'm actually amazed the Mariners didn't give up another run the rest of that game, but I don't have an issue with it. Bizzardo is a great pitcher. He's one of the best bullpen pitchers for the Mariners. I get that he's their 3rd bullpen pitcher, but he's still an incredible pitcher. He was locked down in that game 5, in the division series against the Tigers, pitched like 3 innings of no-hit baseball. I mean, Bizzardo is a great fit for that spot. He throws a nasty sinker that can get ground balls. George Springer just beat him. So it's tough. If I'm being completely honest, taking my Mariners, hat off for a moment, the better World Series matchup is the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. The Mariners offense, I just don't think they have what it takes to keep up with the Dodgers in the World Series. And yes, the Mariners rely on their pitching, but you have to remember the Dodgers are an entire lineup filled with veteran hitters. They're all veterans. I mean, they don't have young guys. It's all a bunch of Freddie Freemans and Max Muncies and Mookie Betts. These are professional hitters who have spent their entire life seeing the best pitching in baseball. So I think the Mariners pitching would have been less effective against the Dodgers, and I don't think the Mariners offense would have been effective enough. I think that the Blue Jays have what it takes to get into a shootout with the Dodgers where you're getting an 8-6 finish. I think that's the type of series we're going to see.
Yeah, you would have seen a lot of games like last night with the Mariners if they had made the World Series with the Dodgers where they get a few big hits, a big Rodriguez hit, a big Raleigh bomb. Like you get a few of those like moments, but the reality of the situation is they don't hit the ball enough and get enough guys on base to get in. I mean, not that they can't get in a shootout. They can score plenty of runs just like any other offense in the MLB, but overall, the constant pressure that Blue Jays lineup puts on you from Springer to Vladdy to
their 7, 8, 9 hitters,
is still on pace for the best postseason average in the history of baseball. Like that is the team that we want to and think can beat the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I actually think they have a good shot. I get that it's the big bad Dodgers, but I wanted to ask you, who are you rooting for in this? Because on one hand, you find it kind of hard to say I want to root for the Canadian team to win the World Series, but I also am sure as hell not rooting for the Dodgers. I actually think I'm going to root for the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays are a better story in my opinion, and if it gives me any solace as a Mariners fan, well, if you're going to get beat in 7 games in the ALCS, it might as well get beat by the team that goes on and wins it. That's at least my perspective. I can't root for the Dodgers, so I'm all in on the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I'm all in on the Blue Jays too. One of my most viral moments on Twitter was when I was openly rooting for Team Serbia and Nikola Jokic against Joel Embiid and Team USA and saying I'm not American. And I forget the other word they used. It was a buzzword for the people nowadays, but it wasn't fascist, but they called me something. And I was just like, I don't even know what this means.
Unpatriotic.
Yeah, basically there's a word for that. And they're like, and I was like, no, I just want my guy and Nikola Jokic to win this game against Team USA, who I don't like any of the players on. I'm not a LeBron fan. I'm not a fan of any of these guys. So I don't care that they're from Toronto. I don't care that they're from Canada. The United States has owned the Stanley Cup for so long that it's okay if we give over the baseball championship for a year and we get to see the Dodgers lose. But, and something that may come out of this too is the Dodgers losing may allow us to have baseball in 2027, which I really want. So
yeah, I don't know how we might be too far gone for that, but Scott says they didn't have Bo in the lineup, who should be back. You're right. Do the Blue Jays? How aggressive do you put Bo Bichette back in the lineup? Obviously, it's Bo Bichette. He's a great player. But their offense has no problems right now. Your 7, 8, 9 hitters are the best hitters on your team right now. Oh, and your top of the lineup is as clutch as it gets. If you're John Schneider, do you mess with that too much? Do you bring Bo Bichette in after you see a couple at bats? How do you use Bo Bichette, or do you just say no? It's Bo Bichette. Put him back in the damn lineup.
I think it's Bo Bichette. You find it because don't. But
who do you take out? Barger,
Kiner Falefa.
Yeah, but God, that feels like a waste.
Yeah, it does. It is going to be interesting to see what they do with him, but I think he's good enough. Is he strictly left-handed hitter? Do we know?
I don't know. It's a great question.
Because
I don't know enough about our
that
Bichette
might
buddy.
Play into it a little bit. If let me see here.
Yeah,
it says he will return for World Series as of 20 hours ago. Which I don't know. He's just that good of a player.
You got to at least give him a shot, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Put him in the lineup. If he's 0 for 5 with 4 Ks or something,
he's hitting basically 300 for his entire career.
Yeah.
He's just a guy that you kind of have to play at some point, whether or not he, gets if he comes up with a couple, if he starts 0-3, he's a righty. So if he's a consistent righty, then maybe you let him face Blake Snell. And you let him, maybe sit him against Yamamoto or it's not going to be good no matter what.
Welcome back.
But I think he's too good to to keep out of the lineup if he is in fact healthy enough.
That's how I felt about putting Brian Wu in the game the other day or yesterday even. You put Brian Wu in the game after having not pitched in a month, and it's like, here's the Blue Jays lineup. Good luck, bud. I know you're really freaking good, but good luck. Here, real quick, we are going to pause for a quick second as we head over to overtime. So if you guys are watching on television, head over to YouTube to continue the conversation, or the DNVR.com as well. We're heading into overtime. But, after the heartbreak that we saw last night, I got to ask, we talked about the most exciting wins when the Mariners won Game 5 for me, as that was one of the most exciting wins I've ever witnessed as a Mariners fan, 15 plus innings. But this was one of the most heartbreaking losses in Mariners franchise history. Mariners fans, myself included, will remember this for the remainder of our lives. What's the most heartbreaking Rockies loss?
The most heartbreaking Rockies loss, I think, just because of, it's the more this goes on with where the Rockies are at, the more heartbreaking this gets. But it's the Rockies losing game 163 to the Dodgers, where they could have just had that one. Like it feels like right now they will never win a division title, much less a World Series title. So I think that's one of the more heartbreaking losses for the Rockies. And cutting room floor, games 5, 6, and 7 of the Indians-Red Sox series were all heartbreaking losses for the Rockies, because if the Indians win any of those games, we have a World Series ring, I have the tattoo, and I'm good for the rest of my life. So in hindsight, 18 years later, if the Rockies would have won, or the Indians at the time would have won one of those games, the Rockies continue that hot streak in 2007. They win the World Series. And I think the Rockies organization is probably in a way different place right now if they actually win the World Series in 2007.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before. Does this Rockies organization look different today if they had won the World Series? I don't know if they do. I wouldn't say they get complacent, but as a fan, it changes everything for fans. If your team, it's like the Mariners. The Mariners have never been to a World Series. That always is there. That if you're a Nugget fan or an Avalanche fan, you can say, no matter what, hey, we've at least won a championship. The Rockies can never say that right now. And so that's the ultimate gotcha. That's the ultimate, get out of jail free card, is when you're talking shit to an organization and you haven't won a World Series and they have. That's the final word. It is the final saying in all of that. So yeah, I'm with you. Game 163. Even if that didn't take you somewhere, even if, let's just say, the Rockies ended up losing out in the first round or whatever after that, winning a division against the Dodgers, it's the lesser version of a World Series, where you're like, hey, we can at least say we've won the NL West against the Dodgers, and we beat the Dodgers to do it, right? Especially with the way today is, that would have meant so much more. I can't tell you how many people constantly are saying to me, you'll never win a division against the Dodgers. And it's fair. I mean, it feels like that. So that one's got to be the worst one for me. World Series preview. Let's do a little World Series preview before we have to end this show. What's your expectations, predictions? What do you think?
I think it's Dodgers in 5, unfortunately. I think they've been there. They've done it before. This is now setting up to be, we never know what's going to happen in an offseason. To me, this is obviously the Blue Jays have a good chance to win it, as the Dodgers do right now. Obviously the betting lines would say a little differently, but to me, this was still another jump year for the Blue Jays, especially not having Bo Bichette the whole playoffs and part of the season. You're one of your better hitters, one of your better players overall being out of the lineup. They go trade for Springer. The Blue Jays, to me, this is a springboard for them. It'd be cool if they won the World Series. I would love to see the Dodgers lose to them. I don't think they can get it done, though. But I think the Blue Jays now are we're here. We know how to build a winner. We got guys like Kevin Gausman balling out. And quick fun fact from our boy Patrick Lyons, he actually tweeted, Jeff Hoffman, 10 years after the Tulowitzki trade, finally but closed out the game to get the Blue Jays to the World Series, which Tulo couldn't do. And Jeff Hoffman was the number 1 prospect in the Tulowitzki trade coming back to the Rockies at the time. So it's insane to think 10 years later, he's closing. I was watching him last night and rooting for your Mariners, obviously, and hoping that the the Rocky would come back out and Jeff Hoffman, and it never did. He just blew it by him.
Struck out the side to finish the game. I'm actually going to go with the Blue Jays. Blue Jays in 6. I think their offense has some games where they go on insane runs. Yes, the Dodgers have great pitching, but if you can get through to the Dodgers bullpen, I think you can put up 6 runs if you're the Blue Jays. Blue Jays in 6. I think this might be one of the more entertaining World Series we've seen in a long time. I mean, the Yankees and Dodgers last year kind of sucked. I think this has a chance to go 7 games. I think Blue Jays will do it in 6.
Yeah, and there's a lot of just like rooting interest, like Canada versus USA, hated Dodgers versus a team that's on the come
up. A lovable team.
A lovable team, exactly. And quick shout out to Mark in the comments. I was at that game, that Diamondbacks wildcard game. That was terrible. Archie Bradley in like the 8th inning as a relief pitcher just doubles and basically ruins our entire season at that point. That was one of the most fun times I've ever had at a baseball game. Story hitting bombs, Arenado hitting bombs, Paul Goldschmidt hit one. Like I was left field, and just hit it over my head like miles. It was just an insane baseball game. I think the final score was like 13-11 or something crazy. That was probably just about as heartbreaking. So
yeah, you don't see a lot of games like that anymore in the postseason. Those big, slugfest games. It's like 4-3 finishes, but. That's baseball, folks. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next Tuesday unless any news comes up. As you guys know, if there's any news, we will do our best to get an emergency pod.
Besides the Latin American scouting director, like we do have a there's a floor to this. It's not very high, but it is higher than that.
No. Even if we get a chief strategy officer, we'll do a little emergency pod. So we'll hopefully have something coming up for you guys here soon. But if not, we'll be back next Tuesday at noon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time right here on the DNVR Rockies podcast.